Salutations, Utopians. Hope all is well in your world. What a night in the association with two phenomenal playoff game series. One got decided tonight between the Cleveland Cavaliers and the Indiana Pacers for the second year in a row. The Indiana Pacers are advancing to the Eastern Conference Finals and just finished wrapping up watching the Denver Nuggets versus Oklahoma City Thunder, which was a nail biter all the way to the end. Uh, Salute to Nikola Jokic tonight, north of 40, 15 double digits in the rebounds. Just down the stretch, guy was going blow for blow with the entire Thunder team, and really outdueled Shea in that fourth quarter when the game was still in question. Lou Dort was a absolute hero tonight, hitting 3 of 4 3-pointers in the fourth, coming alive, not hesitating at all, letting that thing fly, and also had an unbelievable clutch save that on a ball that was going out of bounds that led to Shet tying up the game at 98 apiece with under 2 minutes to go. That really uplifted the Thunder's fans when there was in moments of doubt. But going back to the Indiana Pacers, Cleveland Cavaliers series, as you all know, the Cleveland Cavaliers were amazing until they weren't this season. Second greatest offensive rating efficiency in league history. Um, Made some important trades at the deadline to secure their roster and acquiring DeAndre Hunter from the play-in Atlanta Hawks. Um, let's start with that. DeAndre Hunter has been known to be a glue guy, and when you bring in a glue guy who is being acquired mid-season, it almost doubles down on the I'm just trying to fit in. And though Spider had a little bit of an underwhelming offensive output to his normal standard, I mean, this is the guy who, uh, averaged 28 in a series, which is only one of 7 players to do so in a playoff, um, 28 or better, and he's like one of 8. And so when you have a guy like, Spider, the problem is one, it's going to require a lot of energy to exert offensively, but two, without a certified second option, uh, even though this guy is unguardable, it does require more extra work. Darius Garland, there was a series of injuries throughout this series that plagued this team. At one point, I think they went with 4 start. They were missing 4 players in their rotation, notably DeAndre Hunter, Darius Garland, and Evan Mobley, um, forcing their 6-man All-Star caliber talent Ty Jerome to have to start at point guard. And unfortunately, it got mixed results. As I, for me, I knew Garland was gonna. This wasn't the series for Garland, and the injury was actually a blessing in disguise. The only problem is they didn't have enough time to actually practice it, and then when he returned, Kenny Atkinson was tasked with the difficult decision whether you make him come off the bench, and that's not easy to do. Me personally, I know Max Struss had one good game, I think, in game 2. I would have played more Javante Green in this series. I think, you got to embrace what is going on and surround your team with defenders on some Allen Iverson type of rotation where it's like we're just going to have our best scorer and a bunch of defenders, and we're going to let the chips fall where they may. Evan Mobley, Jared Allen, the theme continues. The questions of the overall toughness on their front line. They got outplayed. Obi Toppin was looking like an all-star. Pascal Siakam returned to his Toronto form when they won the championship in 2019. To a degree, Miles Turner was locked out from 3 and also doing a phenomenal job rim protecting. You got to realize he's in a contract year. He's trying to get paid. And a guy like Jared Allen, who though is mobile, makes his living off of trying to rim protect. Well, you're going to get dragged out into the deep ends of the water with a guy like Miles Turner. That team can actually play 5 out, which is a rarity in this league to have 2 frontline players who can score from anywhere. and left them extremely vulnerable. And then they got some unbelievable minutes from Thomas Bryant, an Indiana native, played ball in Indiana. Got to realize he was the first trade when the trade deadline window opened, and he definitely paid dividends off of the Pat Riley Miami Heat uh, situation this year. You know, a lot of people want to talk about Jimmy and were they right for letting him go. Well, Thomas Bryant, I was questioning from day one. Are you sure you want to let a guy like that go as a key quality big man? I know you got Kyle Ware and Bam and some other guys who you might want to slide at the four. Jaime Hasquez and all that. Jokic, I think's little brother's over there, Jovic or something like that. But grow quality stretch bigs don't grow on trees. Tonight he hit a three pointer. In fact, in a deciding game, and high energy, knew where to be at on the court. Very very underrated performance tonight from him under the radar. What a perfect match. And so, Indiana, you got to realize this is a team that's been built from the soil. They've always built amazing teams. I was talking about this one time in a discussion thread about the Malice at the Palace Pistons Pacers situation. The Pacers have always assembled unbelievable rosters for their teams, and this was, and this just falls in that theme. The fact you got Obi Toppin and Spicy P over there. Not to mention Jarris Walker is struggling to get minutes. He's a worthy player as well. They have so much depth over there in Indiana, and in Cleveland. It's a bad matchup for them because Garland's undersized. He's not the best defender, and then you got your point guard in Halliburton, who's first of all he's fuming being nominated as the most overrated player, but he displayed two-way capabilities in this series, three-level scoring, and as you already know, flashy dimer passer out there who can distribute with the best of them. This was like the ultimate I'm here series. Mind you, he's coming off the Olympic campaign where he just took it all in, but he also didn't get minutes the way Tatum did. Um, but it's just when you think of this roster, it's such a bad matchup. Going back to that, you got Spider who can handle, the physiques of the chiseled Aaron Neesmith and um, Mathurin, but he has to spend so much energy offensively. Then he has to rough up with those two guys. It's almost like you're almost asking too much, right? You got to remember they didn't even really get to Ben Shepherd off the bench, the Pacers that is. But this is a team that's been made from the soil. They are practically a mere spitting image of the Cavaliers from the standpoint they were made from the soil, and this core nucleus has been together for a while too, with the exception of Pascal Siakam and Aaron Neesmith, who was acquired in 2022. But Halliburton, Obi Toppin, um, this list I'm looking at, it doesn't even show Obi Toppin on this list on how he was acquired, but just left off the list. But it was just a terrible matchup. Big athletic guards, uh, front line can space it out, and they also have been together for a while, the way that the Cleveland Cavaliers have, which is normally what their one-up slight advantage has been on other teams. I'm not gonna lie, there were some questionable rotations from Kenny Atkinson this series. Um, I don't want to call the Cavaliers a regular season merchant, but however, because they did get marred by injuries, but I feel like those injuries were actually a benefit because sometimes you can have too much of a perfectly good thing and you don't have enough uh, time together to really sort out the wrinkles in their offense like they had when they were, integrating DeAndre Hunter to what they've already established with Spider, with Ty Jerome, even though I know they go back to UVA together. But, uh, Mobley, Jared Allen, these guys have been together for a while. Then you got to remember they removed Karis LeVert, who's a little bit more of a bucket getter, and ultimately losing that shot creator, which is what they ultimately needed, which was another shot creator. They went 7 minutes in the fourth quarter without getting a bucket. That's where you kind of, that series is where you kind of go, damn, we miss Karis LeVert tonight. DeAndre Hunter's cool, but he's one of those guys you got to kind of almost beg to take more shots. And, because he's just a very clean, polished, plays by the book kind of guy. Sometimes you need that radical in your lineup who's going to start going, who's going to go down gunning, and it can't just be him. It can't just be Donovan Mitchell. I'm telling you right now, this Cavs team would probably be a finals threat if they had Anthony Davis instead of Evan Mobley. Evan Mobley needs to beef up. He needs to get himself some real low post game, and stop being a face up guard, a face up power forward, because there's times where it's like he's a borderline shooting guard out there, and or he's a 7 foot Karis LeVert basically minus the handle. And it's just, you don't want to see a guy who's just facing up all the time out there. You need someone who can exert their presence in the paint. This team is at a gridlock. They're one of 3 teams that has. I think they were the first team this summer to have 3 players under max contracts. So there's not a lot of wiggle room, and you got the collective bargaining agreement now really here. There's not a lot they can do if you're the Cleveland Cavaliers, but they need another scorer to to relieve the load. This was not an indictment on Donovan Mitchell at all. I still think he's elite. I think he's a top 15 player in the NBA, and even maybe less than that, but just off the top of my head. And this is not a reflection of his performance. This is more of a roster construct. The man in the question, the man of the hour is Evan Mobley. Are you going to take that leap? They need him to be more assertive. They need him to be more dominant in the paint. And, obviously with DeAndre Hunter there, he needs to become more comfortable being a shot creator also. At the end of the day, the Cavaliers are, not any further than where they were last year, unless you want to talk about regular season decorations. But when you spend the money that they have with, like I alluded to earlier, 3 max contract players, um, there's no room for just second round exits. This was the ultimate test. One of these 2 teams were going to say, "Hey, we're the new version of ourselves," and that was the Indiana Pacers, and the Cleveland Cavaliers are back to soul searching, and the only thing they can look at is themselves in the mirror. If anyone can, change the very fabric and DNA of this team, it can be Kenny Atkinson. But and that's the one thing I can say. That's the one caveat, is that it's his first season with this team, so you cut him some slack. But next year, it really is at least ECF, Eastern Conference Finals appearance, or even better, Finals appearance. I'm being very conservative, or bust. This is like Donovan Mitchell's 7th or 8th consecutive non-appearance in the Eastern Conference Finals. You got social media comparing him to Joel Embiid now. And so, it's a very tricky environment right now in Cleveland. I don't know what they're gonna do, but they definitely could use a LeBron James. They need a dog in there. They need a old school kind of guy, and they just right now don't have that other than Spider. So it'll be very interesting to see what ends up happening here. Could the Cavs be interested in a LeBron for Evan Mobley swap? Something like, if you're the Cavs, you've hit your peak. It sounds crazy, but the Cavs have hit their peak. And if there's a way where you maybe take a little bit less talented power forward and you work out a 3-team deal, and you can get LeBron and get a power forward there at the same time in return, you might want to think about it, because you have hit your ceiling with this situation, unless you believe Evan Mobley can become more. But it's just, did he take a leap this year? Certainly. But the playoffs, what they needed was real low post scoring from him, a real drop step, a real hook shot, something with more dunks in the paint, and really they ended up right where they were with Bickerstaff last season. So be well, Cleveland. Hope you guys get healthy. I know that roster ran into a lot of injuries. Time together, time heals all wounds, and also I think this team could also use more time together. Not necessarily need a dramatic trade, but it would be interesting to see what they would consider if they were to do so, even in the first place. Hope this video was informative, Utopians. I'll try to do better next time. Global out.